It's the biggest shakeup on the dial since NBC gave Channel 7 the boot, a merger between radio giants CBS and Entercom. But in order to satisfy antitrust rules, both Entercom and CBS are offloading some of the most popular stations in the market. It's a complex corporate marriage, a reverse Morris trust, basically a tax-free transfer under the guise of a merger. CBS spins off its radio stations to Entercom, but keeps majority ownership in the new company. The problem? It leaves the new Entercom with too many stations under one umbrella.
Entercom announced that they're going to sell 98.5, WBZ AM, WZLX, and Entercom is going to throw in WRKO and WAAF 107.7.
Julie Kahn, now with Regan Communications, is a former Entercom VP. She says the stations could be sold individually, but a package including WBZ AM and the Sports Hub would be attractive.
I think that that one buyer buys them so that they can have some, synergies with sales like they've had now.
That possibility includes NBC Universal because of their strong affiliation with NBC Sports. And then comes the suitors who might want only one or two stations.
Right now, Hubbard Broadcasting is reportedly leading the pack in potential buyers. It could mean 3 different buyers come in,
including a Christian broadcasting group, which has been buying up AM radio stations in other markets.
I don't think there's a market for it here, but they're in San Diego, they're in San Francisco being a bigger market than Boston, so it's possible.
But Kahn's most intriguing speculation centers on what might happen to the Sports Hub.
It may be one of the sports teams.
Possibly the Celtics?
More likely, perhaps the Patriots. The Sports Hub carries the Patriots play-by-play.
And that play-by-play and analysis of the team would likely take a whole new spin under that ownership. I had not heard that speculation, but that makes the most sense to me. Meanwhile, I really learned something today. I learned what a reverse Morris trust is. Oh. It's essentially a tax dodge. Oh. So that they basically merged and nobody has to sell off these properties that were worthless at one point that are worth quite a bit now, and then there's some fancy finagling and finances that will happen over the years, and Entercom will end up probably being the majority holder on these things. But I mean, I'm a big fan of WBZ AM. I'm sorry in some ways that the AM dial has become so it's just a wasteland now, and that property, it's a 50,000 watt clear channel, I believe, which means it goes all over the Northeast, and they've got good programming on it. Yeah. So I hope that property finds a good home and that they don't butcher it. 98.5, the Sports Hub, we all listen to the Patriots on that and other sports programming, of course. So I agree with Julie that it would be nice to see those two go together since that's what they are now.
Well, I'm going to bring up an aspect of the story that no one ever talks about, and that is listeners, the community. This is just a mess caused 21 years ago by the Telecommunications Act that Bill Clinton signed that removed all meaningful caps on ownership and all requirements that owners be local. There should be multiple owners in the Boston radio market. They should be locally based, and the community would be served a heck of a lot better than with these mega corporations controlling the market and shifting everything around like chess pieces so they can get their tax dodge.
GBH is the only locally owned at this point. BR.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, frankly, the reason that public radio has done so well over the last 20 years is because the lack of regulation has pretty much destroyed commercial radio.
As a listener, that was my reaction to this story, was I hope that some of these stations wind up in local hands and that more of the programming becomes locally based. I mean, one of my favorite things to do after a Boston sports team loses a game is to go onto the radio and listen to Boston sports fans go crazy and rant about it. And lately I've been having trouble finding that after certain choice games because you go right to national programming. So if I can find my local Boston rants in a local station, I'll be thrilled.
Sports doesn't do anything for me, as you know, but I would miss BZ's news. I really enjoy it, and they do a lot of local stuff. And plus, they have a lot of people there with some history, so that when you hear the stories, you often get a lot of context you wouldn't normally. I don't know that, to your point, Dan, that's valuable to somebody from the outside. They don't get that has meaning for people. Also, they sometimes repeat on the air the CBS Evening News or whatever.
I love that.
And I think it's great. So that means it's not going to work. They're
They
going
won't be repeating CBS.
No,
That's
they
right.
wouldn't. Yeah. So,
My sense would be, if there's anything, my response would be just a lament. And it's too late. The environment, the ecosystem for radio, I think, has just changed too much. There was a time when local radio stations they broadcast directly to a specific segment in the community. My familiarity with Miami, for instance, there was a Creole language station. There would be many Spanish language stations, and each one had a particular community that was tuned to it. We've lost that.
There's still some of that, though.
Some
They're
of
very small stations with very low,
Right.
the reaches
That I
in
think
Mattapan
deals-
and certain communities. I mean, you can still find
Some
them, and
of
you can
that.
find Haitian Creole stations, but you're right that it's not as
harder
bright
and
as it used to be.
harder when these kind
Right.
of
Well,
deals. I think,
fortunately,
are
the good
attractive.
thing the FCC did in recent years is that they did open up some of these low-power
Low-power,
FM
that's right.
licenses. So there's a nice operation in Haverhill, for instance. The
But how
new-
come nobody listens to AM? What happened to RKO? Everybody used to listen to
I
AM.
know,
What
I know.
happened?
Well, the
it went
fidelity is so
online.
bad.
It went online. People could get stuff
Yeah.
online, and so
Yeah.
that's what's
Well,
happening.
no, FM is obviously a better single, but
Yeah, I mean, even for talk, I think people want a better listening experience.
but it seemed to happen so quickly.
It did.
Yeah.